Well, it's this time of year again, and we've had the Sydney to Gold Coast race. The big boats have been in the water. They've all got wet keels. It's all been decided. We're at North Sails with Michael Coxon. Once again, Cocko, we're here for a chat. You're in the race. Tell us what happened.
Yeah, it was it's always an interesting race, the Gold Coast race, because of the time of the year. It's our winter time, so the conditions can be quite varied. The forecast was for a pretty quick race with, in fact, I was on a 60-footer called Triton, and we decided only to take one spinnaker, but if you look at the routing, you would have taken no spinnakers. But like every time that happens, you get caught out. So lucky we did take one spinnaker because we had up for 50% of the race. So it went from being a very quick race on routing to a very slow race, certainly for the mid-sized boats. So the old story, you get a lot of parking lots and catching up, and I was interesting to watch Matt Allen in Ishiban, his 52-footer, because he absolutely blitzed the other 52s. There were about half a dozen in the race, and by halfway up the course, he would have had his time easily. I think he was leading on the corrected time, and then we all ended up alongside him, and everyone was parked up. There would have been about 15 boats you could have thrown a net over, and because of one, the breeze dying, but also the tidal gates. And then we ended up starting the race again, and he again blitzed away, and he finished second in IRC, but won the 52 division. So he's got an incredibly fast boat there, very well sailed, and a very impressive performance. But it became a little boat race. They came home with this win. Whenever it ends with a running race, little boats will win the race. So then the other interest, which was of interest to all of us, is seeing the four Maxis out there on the starting line. It was just, they're just beautiful to watch. It's such a unique thing that Sydney Harbour can offer. It attracts 400 footers, and when the Scallywag is back on the scene for Hobart, I believe it'll be 500 footers, and it's just a unique yachting experience to seeing them out there.
Just amazing how they've all ended up in Australia.
We had our Australasian sales meeting, and we have it leading into the Southport race because we're all in town. So we had guys from Asia and New Zealand and Australia, and then we all go and do the race. And we were talking about markets and why some markets attract different sized boats and so on. And we're just lucky in Sydney that we have it's all about geography. We've got a deep harbour, and a deep harbour allows us to have the draft of the bigger boats. And as boats are getting bigger and the keels are getting deeper, and the high aspect keels, it's limiting where they can actually sail. So if you take an area like a waterway like Port Phillip Bay down in Melbourne, they no longer have a very big, they don't have any big boat market because there's not the depth. So you might have the enthusiasm and the people who would like to have big boats down there, but they're just not the depth, so they don't have the same market. And the same with Brisbane. Although you can keep blackjacks kept on the Brisbane River, you actually don't race big boats out of Brisbane because, again, where the yacht club is and so on, it just doesn't have the draft.
Moreton Bay is very
it's very shallow. Yeah. So Sydney tends to be the attraction. And why have all the 100 been here? I guess it's a legacy of Neville Crichton and Bob Oatley. They basically invested in the Maxi yachts. They went around the world, bashing each other on the head for a number of years. I mean, I sailed with Neville for 12 years all around the world, and I think, to see both of those boats are back here in Sydney, and now we've got Comanche and Infotrack, the old Loyal. It's just a great spectacle, and I think we're very honoured to have them participating all the time.
And of course, with five of them, with Woody back from Hong Kong with Scallywag. Yeah. The Hobart race, the Rolex Hobart race, is going to be another big ending in. And
look how close the amazing thing is, look how close the boats are finishing, and they've all got their strengths and they've all got their weaknesses. And but over sailing on the east coast of Australia, you get these parking lots. A lot of people think that the east coast of Australia and the Hobart race is a fresh weather race, people remember the southerly busters, but hey, they last 12 hours, and the race is at minimum sort of a 48-hour race to a 3 or 4 day race, depending on your size of your boat. And in between those fresh conditions, you go through these very light transitions. And when you have the transitions, the fleet stack up again, and the cards all stack up again, and you're off. So what we've seen in both the finish of the Hobart Race 6 months ago and in this Gold Coast race is it's gone light, and the boats have performed better in the light airs, have hung on and snuck through, because your boat performance difference is way greater in light airs than it is in heavy airs. In other words, a boat that's got an edge in heavy airs might have an edge, say, going upwind of half a knot, but you get light airs with a maxi, and there are some boats that literally can't get going. The ones with the high wetted surface area, they basically, if they park up, you can't get them going again because of the wetted surface area.
Yeah, what are you talking about? Comanche
Infotrack, yeah.
And the other two boats are what we call pencil boats.
I've done many Hobart races on Infotrack when it was Loyal and with Anthony Bell, and you hit the light airs and you just park the water. But then you get the skinnier boats like Wild Oats, who's been modified so she's a bit halfway in between, and Blackjack, the old Alpha, who's in the original configuration, and they smoke in the light airs. So,
well, they won the race, didn't they?
They
won the Flying Honours.
As I say, they might be quarter of a knot off the pace, fresh stuff upwind, but when it goes light, they're actually knots quicker than the others. So they make up a lot of distance in the light airs very quickly.
So it's been a pretty quiet old winter time.
Not for us.
Well, I'm not talking about Sailmakers.
Yeah.
But on the water.
Yeah, no, on the water. But I think that's actually good. It gives us all time to regroup and help programs plan what their future is going to be over the summer.
So what are you seeing?
What am I seeing? I'm seeing that the Australian market, I think, over the last 3 years has been as healthy as I've seen it. It's back to times pre the GFC, and post the GFC, we're in the luxury industry, so people don't need to spend money on boats. So we noticed after the GFC, it really knocked the industry about, and it's changed the industry. I mean, if you look at say New Zealand used to be a builder of mega boats and super yachts and so on, and that industry is all but died over there. And Australia, I mean, you look at McConaughey boats, we're building maxi yachts around behind me here in the next street, and up until the GFC they were just churning out one or two 60, 70, 100 footers plus a year, and that's really good for the local industry, and they've now gone. Which is sad. But I see it picking up in Europe now. I think the slack in that boat building side has certainly been picked up in Europe, and Europe's doing pretty well on that side now. So it's coming back, and there are a lot of existing boats that have been reconfigured and had money invested back in them to keep them competitive. So which is all very healthy.
But worldwide, it just seems, just by looking at what we see each week in the world on water, with what's happening around the world. It's the 52-foot area that's just boomed. As you say, there's not the big ones these days.
Yeah.
It's down to the 72s and the 52s.
Yeah. No, I think that's right. And I think the 52 circuit that's in Europe is fantastic, and the trickle down effect is it's putting a lot of very high caliber, high quality yachts into the market,
in the second-hand market,
into the second-hand market, and I think there were 9 new 52s built this year, something like that, for the Super Series, and which is just amazing. And all the previous boats get sold into the market. So Australia's benefited from a trickle down there, where in this Southport race, I think something like 6 TPs were in it, 52s. So what great racing in itself, that you have all these TPs bashing out against each other.
Well, yes, of course, the two major ones have yet to meet each other, haven't they?
Oh yeah, well that's we've all been waiting for that. Basically, we've got Marcus Blackmore. He's renamed Azura, which was the top boat last year on the Super Series and the World Champion. He's renamed that Hooligan, which is pet name for all of his boats, either Emotional Hooligan or Hooligan, which we can only imagine why. And we've got Matt Allen's latest Ichiban. They're both Boateen boats. The Ichiban is the latest one off the drawing board, and Matt specs boats to do Hobart. He loves his offshore sailing, so it's a Hobart boat, where Marcus's boats are more of a go north flat water boat. But they were planned to meet in Port Stephens at the Port Stephens Regatta a couple of months ago, and unfortunately Matt did the Gladstone race, and the weather turned bad, and a number of boats that were doing that race couldn't actually come back in time to get to Port Stephens. So the big head-to-head we were all anticipating with these two latest and greatest 52s didn't come about. But they're both, as we speak, on their way on their deliveries up to Airlie Beach, which starts in, I think I go next
week.
Thursday, yeah, so I must start on, I think, Saturday. So they're on their way there, and it's going to be the first time we'll see them go head-to-head, and they've got fantastic crews on both, and very, very well sailed. So that's going to be a real interest of that regatta up there.
Oh, that's good, because we're going up for that one too.
Fantastic. Well, then they go back-to-back straight into Hamilton Island race week, which is a two-day break, and then Hamilton Island starts. For those who don't know, it's about 15 miles apart.
You could throw a beer that far.
Yeah. So or maybe it's a bit more than that, but it's half a day's sail to get the boats to the new racetrack to Hamilton Island race week. And the other interesting one there is going to be we'll have the two Maxis again, being Wild Oats and Blackjack, going head to head again for the week. They're not doing Airlie Beach. I don't think there's facilities for their draft over there, but they're doing Hamilton Island. And so it's going to be a great spectacle to see the two 52s and the two Maxis going head to head.
Are you going up this year?
Yep, I'm going to do Airlie Beach on a Martin 49. A friend of mine recently purchased
nice.
one.
Yeah, they're nice boats.
Yeah, really nice boat. And he's two Etchells sailors actually have just recently bought this Martin 49. They call it Urandi, and they're going to sail it at Airlie and Hamilton. So I'm going to do the Airlie on that boat, and then I'm going to do Hamilton on the 60-footer Triton with David Goetz, and a very nice gentleman and client of ours from Melbourne, and really a fun program that to sail with. The Urandi one's a really interesting one because they're going to also do the Hobart Race. That was one of their goals.
Well, of course, this one is fairly important, isn't it? Because it's 20 years since the 98
It is race, indeed, and I think there were 6 lives lost in that race, and 2 of them were good friends of mine, John Dean and Mike Bannister. Now, John Dean's son Peter wants to do this race because I think he was about 15 when his father was lost at sea. And he wants to do this race. So the Winning family, that's John Winning Senior and John Winning Junior, who are both very renowned yachtsmen and businessmen in Sydney, are chartering the Martin 49. And Peter and their friends are going to do that race in honour of John Dean. And it's a really special thing. And a lot of their mates and John Winning Jr., who's nicknamed Herman, and Peter Dean, as kids, sailed together in a Sabo. So there's a lot of family connection, and so it's going to be a really great tribute to the people who lost their lives in that race.
All right, well, we'll be following up fairly closely when it gets closer to the time.
Yeah.
Speaking about the Etchells sailors, we've got the Worlds coming up at the end of the year.
Yeah, it's a lot of action going on there. We've got a lot of focus on
So I suppose
that.
it's going to be locally. You guys, have you had your trials yet or not?
Basically the way the Etchells work is if you're a past world champion, you get automatic qualification. If not, you've got to get your fleet qualification, and a percentage, about 25% of the fleet get allocated to go. So all around Australia, for instance, each fleet has to have their qualifications to get to your selection. And I think that we're hoping to see an 80+ boat regatta, and it's causing, as you would expect, a lot of interest down here. the last one was in San Francisco last September, I think, from memory,
Yeah, August, September.
which Steve Benjamin won, Benji, and he's coming out again to defend his title. He's going to be in, the regatta starts towards the end of October. I know he's arriving, we've got sails ready from early October, so he wants to get out and do a lot of sail testing and get used to the waters. But our recent lead up was what we call the midwinters, or it's now called the Australasian Championship, which is held every June in Mooloolaba, and always gets a good fleet. It had 43 boats at this last regatta, so a lot of interest with the Worlds coming up. And that was won by Dave Clark with Ray Smith and Al Smith, who are not related,
yeah.
and which is really interesting because they've won 2 regattas this over the last.
Victoria, isn't it?
No, Clark is originally from New Zealand.
Oh, yeah.
Lives in Sydney. Ray Smith and Al Smith are from Perth, and they've teamed up together. They used to have separate Etchells, and they've teamed up together, and that's obviously a very good combination because they've won 2 regattas over our last summer, 2 major regattas. So that's pretty interesting, and I put it down to the North Sails because Clarkey hasn't used North Sails in the past, and he inherited North Sails with Ray Smith's program, and now he's converted and he's fully on board, which is great. But that's going to be a really good regatta. We get a plug in. We had top 15 boats at that regatta. We're all North Sails, and you got the likes of. For this coming up World, we've got John Bertrand, Ian Murray, Tom King, Graham Taylor, who got second in the last Worlds. Peter Condy, who's been very successful in the class over the years. Matt Chu. There's a long list of very good sailors. And I think I counted already. I think there's 4 or 5 past world champions sailing in the fleet, past and current, who are going to be at that regatta. So a lot of action going on. A lot of action.
So that's late October on Moreton Bay.
Yeah, it's they call it the Green Island race course, which is a little bit out past. It's not where the fleet normally sails because it's quite a sail away from the yacht club.
Yeah, it is.
But which is good because it makes it more neutral waters and nice open waters. I sailed there many years ago. I did a Worlds there with Dennis Connor, with Steve Jarvin, Mothy Jarvin and myself, and I remember that was an incredibly windy regatta, and it was an infamous Etchell World Championship because I think it was the first or second race, the race committee decided it was a black flag start, and there were 80 boats in the fleet, and we all got back to shore, and there were 6 boats that had a result. They black flagged over 70 boats. so that committee stamped their authority on the fleet fairly early. It caused a lot of dissension in the ranks.
You know who's in charge with that lot.
So that was quite an interesting. I've never been in a situation like that before, and everyone.
I haven't heard of that before myself.
No, it was pretty wild, and anyway, that's the way they did it. And it was actually in the days where the sailing had gone towards saying, hey, let's get races away, and the black flag hasn't always been there or available, and I think they were just basically stamping their authority on the regatta, and they did so.
Let's use it.
There weren't too many other black flags after that.
Tell you about black flags and heavy racing. What about the 18s? Now, what are we going to do about the New Zealand's having the march on the Aussies as far as the year is concerned?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I've been involved with the 18-footer class since the 1970s, so it's a long time, and I'm responsible for the North Sails International of the 18-footer class. And the Kiwis, take my hat off to them, but it was coming for a long time for a number of reasons, and one is that they don't have the same restrictions on that the Australian boats have. The Australian boats are all owned by the Sailing Club, the Australian 18-foot Skiff League, and they've done a fantastic job of keeping that class afloat. They have 17, 18 boats on the starting line every Sunday, and it's a testament to a number of hard workers, including John Winning Senior, who has been very much a stalwart of the class.
Well, Woody and his can-do is legendary.
Exactly, it is, and he's helped the class both by mentoring and financially over the years, and a lot of the sponsors in the fleet, if you look at, they're in the white goods business, and they're all sponsored by white goods. So he's done a fantastic job there. But to keep the class alive, they brought restrictions in, such as sail restrictions. They're only allowed to have 3 new sails a year, and also they have very limited budgets. So unless the sailors wish to put their hands in their pockets, there's only limited amounts they put into it, or the sponsor puts into it. The Kiwis, on the other hand, have more of an open approach where they don't have any of these restrictions. So you're going to find that eventually it's an equipment sport, it was going to catch up. And the other thing that happened, there was a changing of the guard. The Australian fleet was getting long in the tooth, but very, very experienced sailors. And as they've all seen, just by coincidence, I think a lot of them are well into their 40s with kids and that now, and other commitments, have actually hung up their trap belts for a while. And as such, you had a relatively inexperienced Australian local fleet. Very keen sailors, very good sailors, but not experienced in 18-footers. So they're cutting their teeth, and they will certainly gain from the experience and get better. And so I think after it's been won by an Australian for I think the last 20 years, other than Rob Greenhold, who was a POM, won it about 15 years ago, and the Kiwis haven't won it for 20 years. So I think it's great, a good changing of the guard. And it's actually brought the focus back on the Australian fleet, so we actually see 2 very talented skippers getting back in the fleet this year. One's my nephew and namesake, Michael Coxon, who I had dinner with last night actually, and he's jumping back on. He's going to be steering Smeg this year, which is a very, very competitive boat.
Very fast boat. Well,
very
fast
boat.
The year before, didn't it?
Yeah, it won the year before, and Lee Napton, who's sailed that boat very successfully over a number of years, has just had a couple of had twins, and he's decided to cut his sailing back and focus on the family for a little while. So my nephew stepped into that program, which is Mike Mackenzie and Ricky Bridge, very, very experienced crew and a very well-run boat. So. And I think that's been prompted by, they thought, well, hey, we've got to go and get this trophy back again, the J.J. Giltman trophy. And the other new, person coming back is young John Winning Jr. or Herman.
Herman, yeah.
He's going to, he's putting a new boat on the water, and his program is going to have, he's going to steer it. Sevi Jarvan, who's won 7 or 8 JJs himself as
Channel 7, yeah.
in Channel 7, and Sam Newton are going to be his crew, and Sam Newton and Sevi have won numerous JJs together. So it's prompted a bit of a comeback. So the answer is, how are we going to get it back? Well, putting some more experienced DNA into the fleet. And I think it'll be a great regatta, but I don't think it'll be a walk-up. Those Kiwis are sailing really well.
Well, I'm pleased to hear that, mate. We've got to get that JJ back in town. Now, look, what's happening with the America's Cup? Are you guys mixed up in that?
Well, the America's Cup is always one of interest, and I think everyone knows the way the boats are gone, which is going to be really interesting. And we've seen there's been some mini boats built already, and I think.
What's this I hear about some MC38s being hooked up with the gear?
Yeah, I've heard the same. I've heard the same rumour, but I don't know much more than that. But I've heard the same.
Yeah, there's 2 of them. There's, 2 syndicates are using MC38s.
Yeah,
as test boats.
Yeah, I haven't seen any footage myself of it, but I have heard that. Yeah. Have you seen footage?
No, I haven't. No, I haven't seen any footage. I've heard it, but we've only seen the footage of the English boats.
Yeah. Well, my old business partner and good friend Grant Simmer, who runs that program,
Right,
he was telling me about it, and they've built a little boat, and which seems to be performing very well. And they wanted to take the softly approach, he said, before they launched into their full-size boat and learn as much as they can. But I believe there are other programs who are just launching straight in and building full-size boats. So,
straight up, no test boat.
Yeah. So it's going to be fun. And the great news is bringing the focus back into the Southern Hemisphere again. Having it in Auckland, I think, is fantastic. It'll be good for yachting in the southern hemisphere, and I think it'll help again spur the yachting on in this area, down in this
And the
way.
mainsail should be a nice...
Yeah, well, it's 2 for 1.
Yeah, 2 for 1, yes.
Yeah, that very interesting concept.
Is that a sailmaker's dream, is it? You get to sell two sails rather
we've
than
had
one.
a little bit of a laugh about it. I mean, because the fact is it's 2 complete sails,
That's right,
so it's actually effectively it's doubling the amount of mainsails, and so thus doubling the cost of them. But I'm sure a lot smarter people than I came up with it. I don't know that it was a sailmaker's idea, but that's where it's ended up.
What's the idea behind it? Can you give us for we lay people?
The answer is no. I'm not an expert at it, so I could find out for you. And I've heard. I've heard. I guess because it's not in Australia, I hear the talk and I listen to it, but it's not something that I profess to be an expert on, so I wouldn't want to be discussing it because I'd probably get challenged by somebody.
We both get sued.
Yeah, well, no, just I don't want to speak on something that I don't consider myself an expert at. So, but I could certainly put you in contact with people who could help you with that information.
Right, we can't do that today.
Yeah.
Now look, what else is before we finish? What's the local scene about?
Local scene, I think it's been a very warm winter, so it's almost like the winter series on Sydney Harbour is always really, really good, and it's almost like sailing hasn't stopped. There's been some nice purchases. A boat called Voodoo, the Rykel Pew 63, which was built down in Melbourne, or probably 5 or 6 years ago. Time flies, but I think so. It's just been bought by a gentleman named Hugh Ellis, who's been in smaller yachts in Melbourne, and he wanted to get in and have a bit of a go at Grand Prix yachting, so that did its first race in the Southport.
Which you did well, didn't you?
Yeah, it was called Limit before, but it was called Limit,
yeah,
and a sister ship to Loki. So Stephen Ainsworth's Loki, that which was built by McConaughey's around the corner here, and yeah, I mean we had a good battle with it on Triton. She's 63 or 60, both learning about our boats. But that's good to see that a boat like that, it's been over in America for a number of years, and to see it come back to the Australian, it'll be a very good Hobart boat, that one. Really nice Hobart boat. So that's good to see. Locally, the MC38's still going strong, and if anything, they've had a bit of a revival. They're regularly getting 6, 7, 8 boats at their regattas. They have a regatta about every 2 months, and a very owner-driven class, and they set it up to what suits them, and they're really fun to watch and sail on.
Well, it's very competitive, isn't it?
Oh, it is. Yeah, I mean they're just great fun sailing. The one design boats of that size.
And Ginger's doing well, isn't it?
Yep. Ginger's going really well, but a number of them.
That's a shame, mate. There's still time for us ball, because the skipper of that is 83.
I think Leslie's actually a little bit older than that. I could stand corrected, but I think he could be 85.
Oh.
And a lovely gentleman, a wonderful man, and
a great sailor.
Great for yachting. And but that's mixing up. The last regatta was won actually by Marcus Blackmore. He's got another hooligan there, or an emotional hooligan in a 38, and he is working up his crew for the 52. He's invested time in the 38 also, and so he's got a very sharp crew. And with Tom Slingsby on the back of that boat, who obviously is no slouch, so he's on the back of both of them, and I think that he's lifted it to the next level at the moment. So he's won the last 2 regattas, so the class is playing a little catch-up to Marcus at the moment.
Oh well, that all sounds very good there, Cocko. Now, did you say what you're on for the Hobart?
I haven't made a commitment for Hobart yet, so I'm just sort of seeing what pans out with our opportunities and clients and so on. So I'll watch that space.
And you're getting busy now, getting organised in the loft here? Or?
Yeah, we're always busy leading up to the Southport race. That's really the feeder race north. So we're very busy in the months leading up to that over our winter period. Now what tends to happen, it tends to actually slow down a little bit because all the boats are actually on their way north, and then it picks up again in September when they will get back to town. But yeah, we try to encourage people to be a little bit more organised than that, so because you can't pull sails out of a hat. So.
Are you running a loft at Hamo this year?
Yep. Our service trailer, I think, is actually leaving today. We have a full road show that we take up there, sewing machines and battens and cloths, and Hamilton Island always look after us very, very well, give us a great facility up there, and I think we've filmed in it before, and we'll be up there with a team of Sailmakers to service the regatta. I mean, being an island, you're actually isolated, so, and over a couple of hundred entrants in that regatta, so we take our service facility to the island, so the island can provide service to all the sailors, so to keep them all on the water.
That's great. All right, mate, well, thank you for that, and then we'll talk to you later in the year as it gets towards the start of the Hobart for part 2.
Yep, look forward to it. Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, mate. Bye-bye.
Bye.